you have to remember at the end of the day, there's a patient that's at the end of our supply chain. So adoption tends to be a little bit slower due to higher stakes. Patient outcomes are directly impacted, which increases the risk sensitivity. And so we want to make sure that whatever we're enabling within our four walls is not going to impact that in a negative way.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of our podcast, The Automation Journey, the podcast where we explore all the different topics you might face along the way in your own warehouse automation journey. I'm your host, Marissa Dierlam, head of marketing for TGW North America. And joining me today are two very special guests. Listeners might recognize Blake Neal from TGW, but we have also a very special guest joining us, Pete Bennett from Cardinal Health. So thank you guys for joining. I'm really excited to talk about how things have changed in healthcare logistics, automation adoption, and all that sort of things. Before we dive in, though, do you guys mind introducing yourselves a bit?
Yeah, I'll go first. I'm Pete Bennett. I'm the Senior Vice President of Global Operations for Cardinal Health's medical segment, which is a global medical products and distribution portion of our business that services hospitals all across the world.
I'm Blake Neal. I'm Director of Business Development for TGW. I work in the med device field, working with people like Pete, trying to find the best automation solutions for their challenges.
Awesome. Well, Pete, maybe to kick things off and getting at the name of our podcast, I'd be curious to hear about your automation journey. So when did you first learn about warehouse automation, software, AI, and all that good stuff? And how have you seen it shape supply chains?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think it's a great one. And we've been on this journey for decades, if you really need to know how we started to apply these types of technologies. And we've done a couple of different implementations over the past 20 to 30 years, really starting out with what was cranes and totes that was pulled through in an ASRS, or an automated storage and retrieval system. And really over the past 20 years, it's taken a new energy for us to be able to determine what the appropriate application is for each of the different customer personas that we treat or we service out of our facilities. And so understanding the different demand trends and the different types of protocol that we need to be able to support them, we're able to apply the right technology and the right tools. And right now, across our continuum or our ecosystem within distribution, we have some automation that is traditionally a cobot solution that is working through our walls today. And that's how we approach it and how we're thinking about it right now.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, when I think about healthcare logistics, the first thing that comes to mind to me, of course, is the pressure behind it, right? If you don't get things to the hospital on time, it directly impacts patient care. And so I imagine, decision makers like yourself feel that pressure immensely, and it shapes a lot of decision making. Is that what you kind of feel and see in your experience?
Yeah, for sure. Our decision-making processes are really tied to how complex our overall ecosystem is. And within healthcare, within life sciences, our supply chains are complex. They're multi-echelon, and they're in a time-sensitive environment with strict regulatory requirements, which means that we need to ensure that we have the right prototypes in place to include different product types that need temperature-sensitive storage, or we need to have logical or lowest unit of measure programs so that we can make sure that our hospital operations are coordinated and that we can ensure that product is arriving when the customer needs it. Customers in our case are typically hospital systems in the acute care setting, and they are patients at the end of the day. So it's an incredibly important piece of the supply chain ecosystem. It's really dependent, though, on how mature the supply chain is at the hospital that we're supporting. And so what I mean by that is some systems are very complex and highly automated. And we are entering into a system that can receive totes or carts that are going to go on an autonomous vehicle. Other health systems are not. And so we need to be able to meet our customers where they're at all times. And really, automation plays a huge role in that because of its flexibility and agility that we have in the modern ecosystems that we have today.
Yeah, Blake, is that similar to what you're hearing from other clients as well? Some of those same things?
Yeah, it really depends on what kind of medical device that they might be in. It's all a little different, and who they're providing to. I know Cardinal is their own distributor, where other ones aren't. They might be a manufacturer, and there's a distributor in the middle of it. So it kind of depends on what that supply chain actually looks like and who the end user or the end customer is from a distribution perspective, I'd say.
Yeah, and it seems like comparing it to some of the other industries, Blake, that you work with, like retail, where it's maybe a little bit less complex, a little less lower pressure. They've been much more quick to adopt automation and AI.
Yeah. I think we'll get into it. I know we'll get into it more, but it's, if your shirt doesn't get here on time, it's not a big deal. But if that catheter doesn't get to the hospital in time, there's a life at the end of that. So it is very different.
Yeah. What other things do you think sort of drive what makes the healthcare industry so different and unique in some of the supply chain challenges?
That's a really good one. Well, I think one thing is it's an old industry, if you think about that. And you kind of get set in your ways. And Pete, please correct me here if I'm wrong on it, but they get set in their ways and they don't want to change anything because there is a high risk that something might go wrong. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the fashion world, if something goes wrong, you either have another distribution site you can work out of, or, okay, you don't get your shirt. That's not a big deal. But the medical device field, if anything goes wrong, there could be actual complications with, someone's health. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why it is a little bit slower than some other industries we work in.
Yeah, I would say that's right. We're cautious, right? We're not just behind. You have to remember at the end of the day, there's a patient that's at the end of our supply chain. So adoption tends to be a little bit slower due to higher stakes. Patient outcomes are directly impacted, which increases the risk sensitivity. And so we want to make sure that whatever we're enabling within our four walls is not going to impact that in a negative way. So we're a little more cautious as we move forward, but for sure, given the complexities and the economic pressures to continue to stabilize our cost to serve, we have to continue to find ways to be more effective within our four walls.
Mm-hmm. I think something too that's interesting with medical is you look at the companies that are at this level that are providing to these hospitals. They're massive and they've bought out other smaller ones. So to make a change is a lot harder than a company that is built from the ground up. It's just that one company, like say fashion, like use say Gap, for example. Mm-hmm. Whereas Cardinal Health has bought out multiple smaller companies. It's hard to integrate that into a system. So let's try to keep it, I don't want to say simple, but not as complex as you might be in some other areas because there's the potential for failure.
Mm-hmm. So if it has been much more kind of cautious and understandably so, where do you feel like the industry lags the most operationally? Like what are the biggest bottlenecks and why are they happening?
Yeah, I think that where we lag is typically with the innovative and the highly technical solutions that you would see within the four walls of like a retail space. And again, the reason for that is because we've got to find the right customer-driven solutions so that we are able to, optimize the right portion of the supply chain. So when we think about the ever-evolving health system supply chains, customers move from just-in-time, lowest unit of measure type fulfillment, all the way over to wanting to fulfill their own orders in their own facilities. And so we have to remain agile to that. So in order to put an investment in of a very large scale, fully automated facility, you've got to be very cognizant of what solutions you are trying to drive within your own supply chain. You don't want to overclub the automation solution within your facility, but you don't want to underclub it either. So it takes a little more time to find that right balance, kind of the Goldilocks balance of what type of automation makes the right sense for each of your facilities. Now, across our 54 facilities in North America, you're not going to see the same type of automation. You're going to see the right type of automation for the right customer persona that we're trying to service.
Yeah, so then maybe related to that, Pete, do you feel like part of that cautiousness, one benefit then is you can kind of see what automation wins out in other industries and maybe get ideas from what's happening around you?
Oh, 100%. We have been traveling to supermarket facilities and retail facilities and really anybody we can learn from because we don't have a lot of near peers that are automating in that way. And so for us to be able to go and see what a retailer does in a highly automated environment or a supermarket does in a controlled temperature environment is incredibly useful for us as we find the right solutions for our supply chain.
Yeah, and I like that you talk about temperature control too, because I think that is another complexity that you guys face is not only is there all this pressure around patient care, but then the products themselves are pretty complicated. So maybe guys talk to me a little bit more about how does that impact operations day to day, some of that product complexity.
I think if you look at it from like an automation perspective, you have to look at, okay, what percentage is that more complex product, like something that's in a cold area, or it might be some sort of not necessarily hazards, but let's say aerosol or something like that you don't really want to automate, you need to sit down and like, what's the percentages? Does it make sense to automate the majority of that facility, or how much of the temperature controlled products are we actually servicing out of that facility? So there's a lot of analysis and calculation that needs to go into it, make sure that it makes sense at the end of the day.
Yes, I mean, just to add in, whether it's a temperature sensitive product or a sterile product that needs to enter into our facility, whether we have to do lot tracking or expiration management or other types of regulatory compliance, it all creates a different requirement that we need to fulfill within our automation solution as well. And so lots of testing needs to go on. We've got not just our environmental health and safety folks on site testing this equipment. We also have our regulatory folks who help us understand, are we going to impact the product in any way? Will it lead to any type of deviation in the temperature? Is there going to be lower oxygen within a highly dense solution? So those types of things we have to continue to think about in the healthcare side.
Does that also change how you set up your distribution network then, that you would try to put more similar SKUs with similar complexity in the same facilities then?
Well, it's that, but it's also how regionalized do you need to be? Like, are there certain facilities that require X product more than another one? So you don't want to have, say, one big facility in the middle of the United States when a hospital might need it that day or next day. Can you get it there in time? Can you keep it chilled or whatever it might need to be? So looking at the supply chain is crucial, and that's why if you make big changes, you have to do the analysis to make sure you're still going to provide the same level of service you did before you made that change.
The reality is, for us, we have to have a full mix of products closest to the hospital systems that we support in the acute care center. And so we need to make sure that product will be available, that it is there. So facilities like ours are going to have a chem vault, a freezer, a refrigerator, large ambient storage areas, cool rooms, all in one facility across across our ecosystem. And so we are always going to be navigating those complexities. The automation solution is going to have to just fit that world, because that is what is required.
Yeah, so then I'm curious, when you're thinking about automation, what do you feel like is driving the discussion most? Is it, the supporting of and getting goods to the different hospitals? Is it the product complexity and all those things that's driving the decision more? What is sort of the thing that really kind of focuses the conversation on what sort of automation makes sense for you guys?
Yeah, for us, it's really based on the customer personas that we're trying to service. So as a distributor, we don't always choose what products they want us to stock. We have our preferred products that we'd like to stock. We have our Cardinal brand products that we'd like to stock. But sometimes we're doing things like DME or beds or crutches or wheelchairs, those sorts of things that don't fit in a typical type of distribution arrangement. And so we really start with the customer first, and then we work backwards to build our architecture from there, depending on what we're trying to achieve. So matching that right level of automation to specific customer needs and capabilities really is at the forefront of our strategy.
Yeah. So what do you feel like is the biggest barrier then internally when it comes to making an automation investment? Is it about the ROI? Is it about just being cautious in general?
Medical is interesting, though, compared to other industries, like, say, fashion, for example. They typically look at an ROI and it's like, okay, a lot of times it's labor. Can we save 40% labor with automation? Whereas with medical, that's important, but it's also how accurate are we? You have to make sure that order, whatever it is, has every single component that you need.
Yep.
And so we've had customers that bought a system just to improve their accuracy and so that they can track it. Where we were talking about serialized SKUs, I need to know exactly where not only is a specific SKU, but the actual item inside that box, I need to know where it is at all times. And so that's sometimes that could be the ROI, is knowing where those things are and the accuracy associated with automation.
That is exactly right. We focus our automation strategy on accuracy, so how quality our picks will be, how accurate they'll be. Traceability, where is the product within the ecosystem or the system that we are creating? And then finally, helps us manage our expiration. So we want to really ensure that the automation solution we have is going to make sure we pick the first in product first, and then the last in product last. And so that is something that is very important to us from a quality defect perspective, just to make sure we're operating the supply chain effectively.
Yeah, so like we've been talking about, it makes a lot of sense to me why the industry is maybe a little bit more cautious, waiting to see what things win out, have to think about all these different complexities that they're juggling. But it also feels like, on the other hand, the world is changing, right? Expectations around when things need to show up, all of the traceability stuff like you've talked about. So it seems like to me at some point automation is inevitable. Is that what you guys kind of think and see too?
From my perspective, yes, but I feel like I'm
a little bit biased.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's absolutely inevitable. I think as we continue to move our product in our portfolio forward, we need the scale to be able to do that. And the way you do that is through automation. So across our facilities, we are implementing solutions that help sort, pick, and ship orders faster and more accurately. And in order to scale that, as the population ages and as population growth in the metropolitan areas continues to accelerate, we need to be ready and we need to be able to do that. Throwing up a building every time a population center grows is not the way to do that. Leveraging automation that gives us the chance to have a density-rich environment where we can put product away in a more compact array enables us to be able to do that.
So then, in your opinion, when it comes to these sort of medical device companies are exploring automation more, do you feel like what is the main strategy behind it? Is it very piecewise, kind of thinking, okay, we'll take care of these different products, which are a little bit easier, and then these, or we'll work on this area or this process and then this? Or are they looking at it much more holistically, like end to end in this particular building, let's do a full system or a full solution?
I think that one depends on the types of product and potentially the customer as well, because I've seen some that went end to end, but the products worked and it made sense. Whereas other ones, it's a little more piecemeal because they found ways of improving certain processes, but it couldn't be everything. Either the technology wasn't there or the cost was astronomical for whatever reason. So I think it's case by case, customer by customer.
I agree. I think it's going to be highly disparate as we continue to move into the future of what types of automation solutions you're going to see in a facility. I would love for facilities to be fully automatic, but the reality is our products don't always fit into those types of convenient capabilities. And so we need to continue to work with various types of technology to ensure that, as healthcare logistics remains uneven, our ecosystem, which we want to be highly automated and optimized, will be able to scale with it and maintain its pace.
Yeah, makes sense. So maybe let's get into some specific use cases for automation then for these buildings. Where are you guys seeing the most success for automation implementations?
Yeah, I mean, right now where we're seeing the most success is within our cobot solution. So we have bots that help our pickers pick, pack, and ship. So they'll work alongside them, they'll deploy to a geographic area, and then they'll continue to move about within the facility. The next phase of what we're trying to achieve are those density-rich environments, where we're trying to ensure that, one, we're using the available capacity that we have within our facilities and the elevation. Within a value link, which is our lowest unit of measure program, which services, operating rooms and physicians, we want to make sure that the geography of those particular capabilities are leveraging the full 36 40-foot ceiling heights. Today in many of our facilities you're going to see it not use the full elevation, and so we're looking for these more density rich solutions that can go all the way to the ceiling rather than just skirt around on the ground.
Which operational areas do you think are best suited for automation? Is it specifically picking and packing like you're talking about, or are there other areas where you feel like automation could really uplift the throughput?
Yeah, I'll take it first real quick. If it was me, and as I continue to build out our efficacy within the four walls of our warehouses, I want to be able to induct a pallet into a system, have that depalletize, and then pop out on the other end in either a logical lowest unit of measure pick, pack, and ship operation that could go parcel or in a tote, or it can be repalletized and go off to a facility if they are doing self-distribution. I want to have that flexibility, and that's the types of things we're looking at. I don't know, Blake, if you have a similar...
No, I was going to say something very similar. I think that's like the optimum way to do it, and I know a lot of medical companies are looking at that as well, because you can have an individual box full of items and you can have full pallets, and that flexibility is huge, especially when you can reduce the number of individuals you need to manage that sort of operation.
So then is like the potential operational flexibility that automation offers, is that a key benefit that you're looking for? Or is it, going back to some of the things that we said earlier about traceability and inventory and all of that?
I think it's both, and you can get both, but I think it's the focus always in the back of your mind needs to be this type of industry and what you're trying to achieve and what the customer is at the very end of the day, like the patient, the hospital. Those are things you always have to have in the back of your mind of, are we solving that as well and not just reducing, say, labor?
So then what automation technologies do you see healthcare and medical devices kind of gravitating more towards right now?
I definitely think that the automated guided vehicles are a good first step because it's a lot easier to integrate that into a current environment. You don't have to put up a brand new building or something like that. And some of these sites might be older where they have lower ceilings. And so the fixed automation is a little harder to get in. But I think that moves into kind of like what Pete was talking about with the ability to automate it from end to end. You don't need to think about it. You don't need to touch it, but you're still tracking everything. So I think it's both. And it's because there might be that fear of automation with something, I've been doing it this way for 30 years. I don't want to change.
Right.
That's usually a good first dipping my toe into the automation waters.
So then what about WMS or other software upgrades? What existing challenges could those address? Or maybe even AI? I know that seems to be the unavoidable topic. Where are you seeing more of that not hardware stuff creeping in and showing up?
I feel like a lot of people right now are upgrading their WMS. And I think in the medical world, I'm hearing more and more of that because you have so many different sites and they might have come from different businesses that have been purchased.
Sure.
So that's a really, really good first step because once you have a solid WMS, then you can start to handle things, the traceability, and you can even do that with manual labor as well. But I think that's a really important first step, just to have insight into what's happening in that warehouse. You might not know prior to that if you're using, paper tickets. It's a little bit harder to track everything.
Yeah, and if each warehouse has its own system too, like how do you get those things to
Exactly.
talk to each other across the network? Yeah.
I agree. You got to build the foundation first. So making sure our tech suite is all aligned so that we can have a great WMS that'll work well with these types of automation solutions, that we have our networks mapped, that we have the right guardrails in place, that we have the right security in place. And then it makes it easier for us to select these different types of solutions. Variation in our readiness is really guided by the customer persona that we try to service out of each of the facilities.
Yeah, Pete, and are you guys implementing AI in your supply chain, and what does that sort of look like right now?
Yeah, we are. We really started by creating a foundational advanced planning system that enabled us to leverage the technology's AI to create a better inventory plan. So balancing supply, demand, and inventory, and then deployment of that inventory. But that's enabled us to leverage new tools and technologies that help create our network. So we know where to be, where to place a facility, how large it should be, and then we continue to model off of that. It's also enabled us to launch digital workers that work alongside our human intelligence so that they're able to work faster, make better, more informed decisions, and also, create the right inventory plan that helps improve service across our overall network.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So as companies like Cardinal Health take on more automation, they're making these software upgrades, doing AI, I imagine that implementation is going to increase. So what do you feel like the future of healthcare logistics looks like maybe 10 years from now?
Yeah, I think that again, it's still going to be highly disparate depending upon what problem you're trying to solve. In my world, we are the products that a nurse would touch. They're big, they're bulky, they're either light because they're cotton based or they're heavy because they're full of water. And so we're going to need to figure out ways to be able to move that effectively through our supply chain. Look at other manufacturers that maybe have smaller, more contained products or more regular size corrugate. They're going to be able to find a different solution. You also have to remember at Cardinal, as we continue to have prime distribution into as if we're the back room of the hospitals, we're going to need to continue to break these corrugates down into a lower or logical unit of measure program, so we're getting it out to the customers. But I also think, and I know, that you're going to continue to see healthcare move more toward the home. And so ensuring that we can continue to have automation that could result in a smaller parcel type operation that'll make it to the house eventually is something that is completely on our mind. In fact, at Cardinal, we have an at-home solutions business that aims to do that every single day in a very meaningful way, and that's what we'll continue to leverage.
Yeah, that would create a whole nother layer of complexity, but that's very interesting. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. People are now doing e-visits and, exploring AI for health. It makes a lot of sense.
That, and the population is aging, and you got to be able to support these different types of disease states differently. I think you will eventually see drones delivering different types of products. Cardinal Health has tested drones in the past. And so that's the type of work that we need to continue to be agile about, but also still ensuring that we are locked into our primary mission and meeting our customers where they're at.
Awesome. Well, this has been an amazing conversation so far. I really appreciate it. Maybe to wrap things up, I have 2 more questions for you guys. First one is, what advice would you give to other healthcare organizations who are maybe just starting the automation conversation?
I think I've said this a couple of times in conversations we've had, but start a conversation with an automation company and just to understand what's out there, what can be done. So it's better to have an idea of where you can go in the future when you have, say, the capacity within your current facility than when you're in that emergency state of, oh my God, we can't do this. We don't have the space, the labor, whatever it might be. So at least get a feel for what can be done, what does your roadmap look like over the next 3, 4, 10 years, whatever it might be.
Yeah, for me, it's research and work with technology solutions so that you can learn about what's out there. We're on a mass educational front right now, and we're learning what different types of tools and technologies may be applied to our specific ecosystems. That helps you identify pain points and helps define the goals and metrics that you're trying to achieve. Really starting out with that foundation is how we are going to be able to apply. I also think that benchmarking is very important and something that we do a lot here at Cardinal to ensure that we're going to be applying the right tools and technology, but also ensure that the employees know what we're doing. And so AI literacy, automation literacy are all things that we're thinking about in ensuring that our employees are well educated, so then we start to see these solutions inside our 4 walls. They're not afraid of it. They're ready to go, and they want to make it work.
Yeah, that's really important to think about that change management aspect from the people side as well,
100%.
too. Yeah. All right, so the last question is, what excites you the most about the future of healthcare logistics?
I'm gonna let you go first, Pete.
I mean, for me, and this is my favorite topic, as the leader of operations for Cardinal Health, stronger customer service and patient impact. Greater precision and visibility ensures that the right products get to the right place at the right time with the right quality. So that directly improves patient care. That's me, or that's you. And so ensuring that we're able to impact that in a very positive way is incredibly important to me. I think that the reliability gains you get from having a highly automated, sophisticated operation really gives trust that we are thinking about this the right way, that we take this serious, and that we will continue to drive continuous improvement across our continuum of care.
I was going to say something semi-similar. What I've started to see more and more of is the healthcare suppliers and the healthcare providers are communicating better now, and they're actually starting to link up so they actually know what's in stock, like how much of a product they have, and to have that visibility is huge, because I think everyone's been to the hospital before and none of the charts match up because no one's talking to each other, at least within a healthcare provider. But to be able to say, all right, we know that you have 15 of this item, we need 20, you need to start ordering more. Yep. I think that's pretty cool that you have that level of visibility into a warehouse.
Yeah, and all the different touch points that need to be thought
through.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Well, thank you so much, Peter. I really especially appreciate you joining us for this call. I think it's been very interesting. Hopefully, spark some ideas and conversation for some of our other customers as well, and people who are exploring automation and maybe feel a little bit more cautious and reserved. I think it's nice to hear other people's perspective as well.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, that's it for our episode today. Thanks for tuning in. If you're enjoying this podcast, please follow and subscribe, and we'll hopefully catch you on the next episode.